Hello. Please give another round of applause to Dr. Richard White. We are honored to have him here with us this evening. He will be sharing his inspirational story later this evening, okay? Before we get started, we'd like to thank Notre Dame for hosting tonight's event. They have asked us to address some housekeeping items before we get started. Restrooms are located just outside the lobby through the center doors. We hope you are able to enjoy the food and beverages provided by Center Table. As a reminder, there is no food or beverage allowed in the auditorium. And just so you are aware, if there is a need for us to exit the auditorium due to an emergency, please remain calm. Exits are located behind you and through the lobby doors. It is with great pleasure that I wish to welcome everyone to an evening of hope. My name is Maurice. I am the Director of Education at Housing Opportunities Made Equal, a Greater Cincinnati fair housing nonprofit. And previously, I was the Program Director at Upspring, serving the education and enrichment needs of children experiencing homelessness. It was at Upspring that I had the great pleasure of working with the Northern Kentucky Homeless Education Collaborative. We are here tonight due to the efforts of the Northern Kentucky Homeless Education Collaborative, consisting of local homeless liaisons and their supporters. This collaborative represents 9 Northern Kentucky public school districts joining together to bring attention to National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week and the educational barriers faced by students who have no voice or choice in being homeless. What many of you here tonight may not know is that each year in our Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky region, over 7,000 school-aged children and youth experiencing homelessness, there are over 7,000 of them. Imagine, if you will, the difficulties these students face as they leave school each day, not knowing where they will sleep that night. Statistics tell us that homeless students are 87% more likely to drop out of high school compared to their housed peers. And without a high school diploma, these youth are 4.5 times more likely to experience homelessness through adulthood. As a nation, it is imperative that we not only recognize the facts surrounding childhood and family homelessness, we must also collectively decide to work towards change. With this event and your decision to be here tonight, we are one step closer to bringing a voice to the children who have often been referred to as the invisible. Invisible because though they have no place to call home, they are not living on the streets, and admittedly, this is what comes to mind when we think of homelessness. Invisible because though they have no place to call home, they are ineligible for the majority of housing assistance and case management programs provided through the United States Housing and Urban Development, better known as HUD. Tonight, we are shining a light on these students so they are invisible no more. Oftentimes, we find it difficult to understand the challenges others face until we or those we love are confronted with the same challenges. Storytelling is a great gift, as it allows us to explore a world that is unfamiliar to us and often fills us with great emotion and inspires us to take action. We are thankful for our guest speakers who have bravely chosen to share their stories with you here tonight so that we may better understand the challenges faced by our students experiencing homelessness. So without further ado, I wish to introduce our first storyteller of the evening. He is a graduate of Newport Independent Schools, where he has also been employed for the past 8 years. He serves as the district's lead computer tech. He is a partner of Lindsay and the father of Andrew. He is an avid Dungeons and Dragons player and gamer. Please help me welcome Brad to the stage as he takes us on his journey through homelessness.
So, as a child, homelessness was different to me. It was when you slept outside or on the ground or on a bench or even under a bridge. It took me until the age of 23 to truly understand what having a home truly meant. So when I was 5, my mom gave me to my aunt because she thought it would be a more stable home. So with my aunt and uncle, like almost every other family, we moved up to 5 times a year, or so I thought that's what families do. Oh boy, I was wrong. So as a child, we would move into a new house or an apartment, and after the first month of paid rent, we would stop paying, but we would continue to live there for a couple more months. We would just be in the house watching TV or just waking up, and we would get a knock on the door. We had to hurry up and be quiet and not move or hide so we wouldn't be seen through a window, because it was the landlord or sometimes even the police, depending on who was living there with us at the time. I was told it was the landlord, and we just had to hide until the first. Then we could pay rent and stop hiding. The first would roll around, and I would be happy because I don't have to run and hide when I see the landlord on the street so he doesn't ask me questions. But then on the third, I got woken up in the middle of the night on a school night by someone who lived in the house at the time, and I was told, hurry and pack. I realized it's always cheaper to move than pay 3+ months back rent. So without question, I got up and packed as fast as I could. We started putting it in the back of someone's truck that I've never even seen before. And like that, boom, we were on the road for 3 hours. We were moving to my aunt's daughter's house in Campbellsville, Kentucky. While we lived there, I was left with my aunt's daughter a lot. My aunt and uncle went back to Newport a lot within the 1 month we lived there. Still to this day, I don't know why they went back. So I was in this small town that I know nothing about, people I really don't know. No, there was just fighting all the time, people doing pills and different drugs and drinking. I look back on it today as a father, it truly blows my mind what adults did in front of children. So after a month, we moved back to Newport. My aunt and I were staying at an apartment while my uncle stayed with his mom. No one had any space for our stuff, so we just kept it in our small car. Then one night, everything got stolen. If it wasn't for the people of Newport schools, I wouldn't even had any clothes. My glasses were even stolen. And living on government assistance, only got 1 pair a year. The school even helped me get new glasses. I'm very thankful that the school was there to help support me in my time of need. Thanks to my girlfriend, I've realized habits I got from my childhood. Growing up, I never wanted to be in the house with the people around. So 6 in the morning, I would get fully dressed, leave, then come back super late and go to bed, then do it again the next day. So as an adult, I never get into comfy clothes. I keep all my stuff on, from a button-down shirt to a polo to my dress shoes or gym shoes on until I'm ready to go to bed. I'm trying to work on it. That's just one of my habits. When I was younger, we would get food stamps, or when we would go to churches for food, or anytime we had food really, I would always eat as much as I could before it was gone because it went by so fast. So many people coming in and out of the house would drink and eat everything in the house. So if I wanted something, I would have to eat it fast, or I would have to hide it so it wouldn't get taken. A saying I heard growing up a lot was, whoever eats the fastest gets the mostest. I didn't realize I had an eating habit. My girlfriend and I would go out to eat, and I would always order quantity over quality. She reminded me that I don't always have to overeat. If I'm hungry, we could get food that's at the house or grab something else. We could eat anytime we want. From that moment, I started to enjoy eating and not just doing it to get overfilled. Moving in with my girlfriend, I realized I now have control over my life. As a parent myself, we keep everything my son does, from a drawing that doesn't make sense to each paper from school just because he wrote his name on it by himself, and we are proud of him. I look back and think about how I almost have nothing from my childhood. Not any artwork from art class, no school pictures, not even the lamp we made out of a soda can with the 4-H program. I don't know if the stuff was lost from moving so much, or if it was stolen, or did anyone even care enough about keeping it. The reason I said almost nothing was one day my mom gave my son a book, and at first I didn't know what it was. Then I looked, and it was the book I made in 5th grade. We all had to write a story and draw the pictures ourselves. Then they would send it off and have it made into a hard-covered book. I could not believe she had it. It brought tears to my eyes. That's the only thing I have left from my childhood. So we are here to talk about homelessness and hunger. I now understand what being homeless is. Just because you have a roof over your head does not mean you have a home. It goes a lot deeper than that. Growing up, I never felt like I had a home. A home is where you feel safe and loved. It truly breaks my heart knowing what some of our kids in our towns go through. If not for people like you all here that are willing to help them, the kids could be lost forever. It only takes one person to change the life of a kid for better or worse. I hope the right person finds them. At age 13, the people who found me was one couple that lived on Liberty Street in Newport. Side note, from stop sign to stop sign, I lived in 5 different places on that one block. These neighbors were named Linda and Larry. They truly took me under their wings. So I would go hang out with them almost every day. At the beginning, they didn't know what my home life was, but as time passed, they understood. They started feeding me every day without making me feel like I was a burden on them. They did so much for me. They bought me my first pair of boots. Larry taught me how to fish, and they just cared for me. He even taught me how to work on cars, and he would pay me to help. As a child, I had my own money, which I earned myself. That day, a switch went off in my head. If I want something, I need to work for it. I told them one time how I've never been camping. They showed me that they had a tent, and I was like, ooh, can I sleep in your backyard? And they let me. The love and attention they gave me was so different. I then understood what it felt like to be part of a family. And I camped like this often because I didn't want to go to the house that I was staying at. I remember one night while I was camping, someone OD'd in my house. I'm just happy I wasn't there to see it. When I tell people all my stories, they always ask, are you angry or sad? And I tell them, no, I have no reason to. It's in the past. I'm in control now.
All right, please give another round of applause for Brad. Thank you so much, Brad, for sharing your story. Thank you so much. Our next storyteller, professionally, has been 20 years in and around the world of education. 10 years at the Brighton Center running multiple after-school programs. 2 years as the 21st Century Community Learning Center Director at Newport Independent Schools, and now 8 years as the District McKinney-Vento Coordinator. Personally, she is a wife and mom of 3 beautiful children, and she is best known for her infectious, off-the-cuff interactions. Please welcome Kristy McNally.
Hi. Let me get situated. This is more my style. It took Brad a long time to get up on stage to do that. Wasn't that a big deal? I may cuss a couple times. I'm just giving you a heads up, okay? I get real worried about that, but it comes out of my mouth and I can't help it. So it was 8 years ago that I met the W family. The W family is a family of 6 kids, mom, dad. And at this time I met them, they were living on the floor of someone else's house. There's a picture out in the lobby. I want you to picture it in your head, though. It's like 2 futon-style mattresses in this really shanty house, okay? Peeling paint, things like that, right? This isn't my house that I'm going to tonight. I want you to get these images in your head. I met them upon enrollment. Mom was enrolling, then she was crying. The 9-year-old daughter had her hand on her shoulder, just kind of comforting her. They had been bouncing place to place, and they were staying at Grandma's house at this time. It was my first experience really ever experiencing anyone that had been homeless, and it was a doozy. I had been working in and around schools for 12 years at the time, and this was like my first case as the McKinney-Vento coordinator. And it was a situation that was really hard. You had to see it to believe it. And I chose to do this work that I do, whether it was after-school programs or what I'm doing now, because I knew I wanted to teach, but I didn't want to teach math or science. I wanted to teach about life, because I too had my own life experiences. When I was 3, my parents divorced, and later my dad would end up spending 13 years in prison. We then moved with grandparents for a little while, and until my mom got things figured out, we ended up back in our own place. Later, she remarried to a man who ended up being an alcoholic and verbally abusive. So when we left, again, we then stayed with family friend for a while, and then again with grandparents until she got it figured out. This is important, so I want to make sure I get there, sorry. I guess you could say I grew up in a very stable and unstable environment at times. However, during all of this, my mom successfully owned a restaurant for 30 years, okay? Thank God she didn't remarry again until just a couple years ago, and Michael's great. But through this, she taught us that we could get through anything, because see, she just kept bouncing back. She's really a badass. Now, counseling was a huge part of our life as well, and I'm really thankful for that. But through all of this, I learned that these were not problems in our life, these were opportunities. And it made me lucky. Now, I can tell you a million things about my mom, because she really is a badass. But that's not what tonight's about, Mom, right? And I tell you, you're amazing all the time. I'm serious. Now, mind you, even though I have this get shit done, these are not problems, these are opportunities kind of mentality, I'm going to embarrass myself and say that I honestly took the job as the McKinney-Vento coordinator because I was looking for something that looked a little less challenging. And I was completely wrong. This path, this journey, this job is one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it's also the most beautiful. It was what the universe had in store for me all along. But what I learned real quick was that I was going to be a part of big people problems, but with little people. See, these boxes over here, they represent these big people problems, right? There's fear, embarrassment, worry, homelessness, sickness. Hell, quite a few of you came in here with probably 2 of those, right? But almost all of this is occurring for our families. Now, my job as the McKinney-Vento coordinator was to help lessen this, or at least help it make a little bit more sense. And then bring it a little ease and grace, and then walk this journey with this student or this family whenever needed. There is someone identified in every public school district as the McKinney-Vento coordinator. Now, depending on the size of the school district or whatever, it could be someone's full-time job like myself, or it could be someone's 7 responsibilities. Now, I shared with you in the beginning that the W's had a history of moving around a lot. And they enrolled in our school when they moved in with Grandma. And then a couple months later, they moved to another place with a family friend. At one point, they had been MIA for a couple days. They weren't at school, their phones weren't working. So I went to the house in which I knew they were staying. The person there answered the door, and he said, oh, they just left, and they just loaded all their stuff up in their stroller. Now, mind you, they didn't have children that fit in a stroller anymore. The stroller was how they got their stuff from place to place, because that's what happens when you move around a lot. This is one of the many reasons that McKinney-Vento Law, the McKinney-Vento coordinators like myself, came into actuality. See, McKinney-Vento, what the heck is it? I mean, that word is crazy, isn't it? McKinney-Vento. Nobody ever knows how to say it. But anyways, it's a federal law, okay? Came into existence in 1987. But it gained momentum with the No Child Left Behind Act. And that meant that it put someone like me in every public school district. But like I said, I bet tonight might be the first time you've ever heard those two words, McKinney-Vento. So a lot of times you'll hear families in transition, and that's a lot of times what school districts use. But I will always use McKinney-Vento because it's the law, and I want people to know about it. The purpose is to address the educational needs of students experiencing homelessness. So what the heck does that mean? It means our job is to provide stability, support, and to tackle these unique barriers that students experiencing homelessness may face. It means really seeing people, okay? It means this is their most vulnerable time. It's our time to be present with them. So the one way that we're going to provide some stability and support is keeping them in their school of origin. Okay, so when they enrolled in Newport, even though they're moving around and they're bouncing place to place, it's important to keep that educational first moment stable. Because while the rest of the world around our students, for instance, the W's, is seemingly unstable, we have control of those 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Now, who qualifies for McKinney-Vento? This is going to be students that are doubled up, like the W's, bouncing place to place, due to some kind of an economic hardship, living in shelters, hotels, uninhabitable, inadequate places. That means that if there's rodent infestations or no utilities. Also, unaccompanied youth. These are going to be your youth that are couch surfing. Maybe your older youth are doing that. Sometimes kids who are temporarily removed from their home and placed somewhere else. Now, our job as the McKinney-Vento coordinator is to level the playing field, okay? And I'm not telling you this because I want you to feel sorry for anybody. Absolutely not. Because when I was a kid, I would cry a lot, and I struggled in school, and my teachers felt sorry for me. But they passed me on anyway, but it didn't help me. I'm 46 years old, and you ask me a question about something, especially like math or something like that, it freaks me out because I didn't build that security within myself that I know these things. What I want you to know is these are tough-ass kids doing tough-ass things. So for instance, when there's no lunch money, we're going to make sure that they are receiving free and reduced lunch. When they may have worn the same clothes, like I think you heard Brad say, for a couple days, we're going to get them new clothes. When they're not performing well in class, we're going to have the proper conversations with teachers and staff to make sure that proper enrichments are in place. We're going to make sure that they have access to school activities and sports. Here's a big one. If they do not have a way to school now because they've moved around, and especially if they've moved out of district, it's our job to put transportation in place. What's even more important about that is it's 2 different districts' responsibility. This is all a team approach. So for instance, if I have a student that started with me in Newport but now needs to move to Erlanger for a little while, our two school districts, by law, have to work together to ensure that stability for that child. It's amazing. Another part of this job is to raise awareness, like things like tonight. Talk about it as much as possible. Break the stigma that's attached. See, sometimes students that are homeless, they're going to be wearing some of the best shoes, okay? Like these shoes I got on right now, right? And here they are, right? Because you can't crease these, okay? They even sell things inside your shoe so you don't crease them, all right? Shoes are a big deal, but here's why. Because you can hide you're hungry, you can hide that you slept in a hotel, but you can't hide your feet, right? Families like the W's may live with this instability, this worry, but when students are properly identified and services are put into place, changes start to occur. And the first thing we're going to see is a change in attendance, and that's going to be an increase in attendance. Courtney, she's a different student than from the W's, had 23 absences and 63 tardies. Now, side note, I'm not going to tell you how many Brad had, because it was more than that. Right, Brad? I said he should put that in there. He didn't want to. But anyways, so now she had 23 absences, 63 tardies her sophomore year. She's now in her junior year. She has 3 tardies and I think 1 or 2 absences. But see, what was happening is before is they were hiding. They were being secretive because they were bouncing place to place, and that doesn't create stability, doesn't create that consistency, right? Because they were scared. They were scared because they had moved so many times, and so many of those times maybe out of the district. And when I tell you that people do this, it really is 2-day increments sometimes. Sometimes it's 2 months. It's never consistent, okay? So once I identified them, and Courtney, and I started putting the proper services in place, it was like the family who loved Courtney so much, but they were like blowing up this balloon. And as they kept blowing up with all these experiences, right? The balloon was getting so big, it was thinning out, it was about to bust. But once I became part of their life, it was like they could let out that air gracefully. Now, sometimes students don't need anything from me. Sometimes students are identified as McKinney-Vento are already performing at the top of their class, and this is huge. I started looking back at data. In the past 5 years, 1 or more of the students in the top 10% of our senior class were identified as McKinney-Vento. Cody, student at Columbia University. Shelby, student at San Diego State University. Stephen, active in the military, loves it. He literally texts his teachers, does videos, proud. But you know why? Because he felt connected to that school. Nowhere else. But he's doing great things. See, this is where the part of the story where students like myself, Brad, Richard, who you're about to meet, and the many students that came before us and after us are able to break that mold of the public perception of what homelessness and education look like. Success is possible. Success is possible, but it's not guaranteed. While the W family was with Newport Schools for the 3 years that we had them consistently, we were able to move the mark on them. Their attendance increased, their testing and scores increased, their behavior, not so much, but we never gave up. And I'm sure there are a few teachers in here today that know exactly who I'm talking about and never gave up. In 2019, they left us, and their story doesn't end so well. The family was eventually separated as those outside problems became bigger, and foster care was the end result. But for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, for 3 years, we provided stability, love, and consistency. And more importantly, that consistent education. And I know that 10 years from now, maybe sooner, they're going to tell someone about the time that they were homeless and how supportive someone in their school was. Working in this field has taught me there's way more to education, and I hope you realize that tonight. It's about beauty, kindness, empowerment, success, hardship, determination, change, and empathy. Homelessness doesn't just happen in Newport. Every school, every public school district in the United States has students that are experiencing homelessness. I gotta tell you this quick thing, this is a side note, but I was out in the lobby and the janitor said, "What are you guys doing tonight?" And I told him what we were doing, and I said, it's about raising awareness about students that are experiencing homelessness. And I walked away, and then I walked back for something. He said, "Wait." He said, "You don't mean students?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, we don't have any students here that are that, right?" I said, "Well, probably." I said, "You may have less than me, but yes." I just think it's interesting, right? This is what we're doing. This is why we're talking about it. I said, see, it made you think, didn't it? But anyways, there are Kristys, Brads, Richards, Courtneys, and the W's in every school district. Tough-ass kids doing tough-ass amazing things. Now, my mom was talking to me on the phone the other day. We were just talking about everyday stuff. We're getting ready to hang up. And she said, "I love you, Kristy. Keep your heart open." Isn't that cool? I told you, she's cool, right? So here's how I end to you. See people. Say their name. Get to know their story. And always keep your heart open. Thank you for being here.
I remember meeting Kristy a couple years ago when I first started at Upspring. And I tell you, learning about McKinney-Vento and how much people like her and other McKinney-Vento coordinators do for our children experiencing homelessness. I just want you all to give another round of applause. And unfortunately, I got creases in my dress shoes, so I messed up. You got to show me how to do that. And finally, tonight, it is with great pleasure that I have the opportunity to introduce our next special guest, Dr. Richard White. From an auspicious beginning as the homeless son of an alcoholic mother in Baltimore, Dr. Richard White transformed himself into a university professor, world-class entertainer, and the world's first African-American to receive a doctorate degree in tuba. Clap on that one. White's success was years in the making as he rose to the leadership in one of the world's most competitive fields, classical music. Without a doubt, White's true story of perseverance will inspire you as it reminds us of the potential inside every child. Without further ado, please Please enjoy this trailer and Dr. Richard White.
Why are you named Raw Tuba? And I like explaining to people, Raw Tuba is just my name is Richard Antoine White, and I play tuba.
It's extremely rare when you look at numbers of Black Americans in symphony orchestras.
He was the hardest worker I've ever seen.
He has a brilliant technique.
I look up to my brother because I know everything that he's been through in his life.
The only thing that's gonna stop me from being successful is death.
Baltimore makes national headlines again.
A deadly and violent weekend.
You get down and out, but look back where you came from.
I'm Baby Ricky.
Oh my God!
Plenty of nights I had to imagine a warm blanket, or imagine that my tummy was full. And this water fountain has got to be just as old as me. Oh, it still works! Wow! That was my bathroom, man.
The possibilities for the human spirit are endless.
Feeling like you're about to fall.
Everything that's happened to me has made me stronger.
To catch and hold you.
Probably pushed him harder as a student than anyone.
You know.
Make sure if someone don't address you by Dr. Richard White, don't speak to him.
You down.
And music definitely saved my life.
If my brother can come through all this and make it, I know I can.
You know, it costs billions of dollars to get to the moon. It's not about landing on the moon. It's about doing the impossible. There are a lot of Richard Whites in Baltimore.
They see it and see where he came from, and he made out fine. They're gonna want to do the same thing.
Thank you, thank you. It's an honor to be here. I want to open by saying my tuba was damaged on the plane, so I spent this morning getting it fixed. And I think the media news owes Kentucky a big apology because this place is one of the kindest places I've ever been. So I honestly believe there are thousands of problems in the world, but 99% of them can be solved if we were kind. So I'm going to ask the previous two storytellers to come out, and I would like a hug before I begin. Okay, we gotta have a music lesson. I happen to know from a little birdie that we got some music people in the audience. So let's practice. Basically, we got one rule, ladies and gentlemen. You have to clap on 2 and 4. If you clap on 1 and 3, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. Okay? So, let's work on this. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, you're sitting on an A right now. I think you can get an A+. No matter what you hear me do. 2 and 4. Let's practice. Boom, 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 ba-ba-doom, thump, beam, boom, sa-ba-doom, beam, boom, boom. All right, stop. We're gonna take this show on the road.
Thank you, Dr. Richard White. yourself right here. Turn impossible to I'm possible. I will take that away today. So let's give it one more round of applause. Impossible to I'm possible. It is our hope that tonight's storytellers have captured your heart and provided you with the knowledge needed to advocate for our students on our students' behalf. It is imperative that children and youth with no place to call home be recognized. Until then, our school districts and homeless liaisons, can I have anyone that's, that works, that's a McKinney-Vento, our school district, can I have you all stand? I see a few of you. Please, let's give them a round of applause. They will continue to fight for the educational needs of our students. And we'd like to include you in our ever-growing group of supporters. Okay? So I'd like to invite out our storytellers. Please, all come out. Okay. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Before you go, Joseph Best is here. You all seen him in the lobby, right? Please stop by the lobby to purchase a copy of the book. Uh-oh, it was up there. Of Dr. White's acclaimed memoir, I'm Possible. Also, please take the time to complete our 4-question survey. We want to know how we're doing, okay? There's a QR code in the lobby. Please take those phones out, scan that QR code, and please, please give us that feedback, okay? Thank you all, and you all have a great night.